Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Here to do a first impressions of the Steam Deck. I have here the 256 gig model that I received during mid-May, so it's been almost a full 2 months of ownership for me for this great system by Valve. And yeah, I'm very happy I pre-ordered this on day one. Glad I pre-ordered the 256 gig model in a sense because that allowed me to get the system earlier. I was a Q2 second quarter reservation holder. And I think since most people pre-ordered the top tier model, that's the one that's kind of backed up a little bit in terms of people receiving the system. But the good news is I think I saw a Twitter post by Valve that they're ramping up the production of the systems. And in fact, Q3 is already on their way pretty much. And, a lot of people are receiving their Steam Decks, in there. But yeah, I decided to go with the 256 gig model just because, the top one, man, that was a very hefty, price tag. I think it was 650 if I'm not mistaken. And my thought is this will likely not be the first and last Steam Deck that's released. I'm sure in the future, maybe a couple years from now, they're gonna release like a 2.0 version. So I decided to kind of like go, test the waters with the mid-tier model, and then I'm sure in the coming few years they will be releasing a new model that will be better and better memory, better graphics, and things like that. So I might pull the trigger on a high tier model for future versions of the Steam Deck. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the 256 gig model because, as some of you may know, one of the cool things about the Steam Deck is that it allows you to use micro SD cards, and it's very, very seamless. You put an SD card, and you can play games off of it, obviously, and you can swap micro SD cards. You can eject one and put another one in, and instantly you have access to a new portion of your library, obviously, because the more games you have, the more memory they take, but the more modern games you have, obviously, the more memory they will be taking. Now, personally, I'm using my Steam Deck so far to play mostly like indie games, which I know will sound kind of weird, but I don't have a need to play like AAA games on the Steam Deck, at least yet. That's why I have here in the back, as you guys can see, I have my setup with my Sony LED TV here, my Bravia, my PS5, my Xbox Series S is there. So that's where I typically lean if I'm going to play like, current releases that are very powerful. That's why I have my comfy couch there. But as far as the Steam Deck, I think it's a great system to just test the waters with either indie games or kind of like older games. And just to give you an example of the few games that I've been playing, I already completed Celeste, which is an indie darling type of game, one of the best, highly acclaimed indie platformers out there, released in 2018. I've been playing Blasphemous. I think I'm getting close to the end in that game. It's a good indie Metroidvania game that has gotten a lot of positive reviews. Also been playing Horizon Chase Turbo, which is a racing game. Runs great on the Steam Deck, 60 frames per second. It's kind of like a homage to the Top Gear games of old. That's kind of like as far as indie titles. And then I've also fired up Bayonetta, for example, which is kind of like a 3D game. Obviously, it's an older 3D game that was released back in 2008, 2009, something like that. So it's an older game, 3D game that the Steam Deck plays without any issues, 60 frames per second. And I did fire up Resident Evil 2, for example, as far as modern recent games, just to test the waters. And the system runs, the game runs great, which is fantastic because I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and this just gives me more excuses to replay that game, Resident Evil 2. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And as far as my first impressions, I guess I should have mentioned this right off the bat. This is like off the cuff. I'm not gonna go deep into the technological aspects of the Steam Deck. There are so many great channels and YouTubers out there that they're gonna talk about the nuts and bolts of the Steam Deck. I'm not gonna mention any specs or anything like that. This is just more kind of like my own personal first impressions of the system. So don't expect me to be a techie here, mentioning all the different dimensions and numbers that the Steam Deck will spit out. Yeah, let's just start. I have a cheat sheet that I have here that I'm looking at. As far as the hardware, let's talk about the hardware itself. It feels fairly solid for the most part. It's not a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. The buttons and the sticks, they feel pretty solid. They feel pretty sturdy. But there's a sense of like not premium quality, which is okay, I guess. Especially on the trigger buttons. I was using those a lot for the racing game I was playing, which is Horizon Chase Turbo. I was just holding that acceleration button all the time, and the triggers feels they don't feel premium. And the D-pad and the sticks are decent, but they're not premium quality, which is fine, But the good news is that they work fairly well. I've heard some people got some issues with the triggers getting stuck and things like that, but it's not a perfect system by any means, and those are just a very few, like the exception to the rule. I think for the most part, people have been enjoying the Steam Deck in terms of the hardware. No major issues as far as I'm concerned, which is good considering Valve doesn't have a clear clear winner history when it comes to hardware that they've developed in the past. But I think so far it's very encouraging considering I have an early or fairly early model, I guess, and so far the system feels pretty sturdy and well made. Again, not premium quality, but just a step below premium quality, and it just feels very sturdy and feels like it works fairly well. I do have a silicone case that I bought. I think it's the JSOX silicone case, as you guys can see here. I bought it mostly not to protect the system itself, but for better grip and not to mess the original plastics with my natural oil, skin oils, if you will. It's not like I have dirty hands or anything like that, but I do have a tendency of, just leaving oil in, controllers and things like that. So I had a bunch of systems that I use a lot, controllers in the past that get quote unquote damaged by that. So I decided to just buy a silicone case to protect it, and I may do like a review of the silicone case. It has its pros and cons. It's fairly cheap. You can buy it on Amazon, but yeah. As far as the rest of the hardware, it feels solid. It's a big system, as you guys can see here, but at the same time, it has a 7-inch screen, which is huge. But at the same time, it's very lightweight when compared to what your expectations are for the system, if that makes any sense. Like I thought it would be a much heavier and bulkier system, but it's not. It's actually fairly lightweight, which is pretty cool. And the system itself is fairly thin in the midsection, as you guys can see here. The areas where you have the grips here are the kind of like the thickened areas, if you will. Which is great for ergonomics. I have pretty big hands, so that helps a lot, I feel like, in terms of hardware like this. So it's, for me, since I have very, very big hands, it's very easy to reach out any buttons and sticks, placement and whatnot. The system has the back trigger buttons here, which I haven't used yet. Those are for mostly, I guess, first-person shooter games, competitive, online, things like that. But plenty of buttons here in terms of, you have your face buttons, you have your 4 kind of like trigger buttons that are standard. But you also have plenty of like menu, Steam, the Steam button here, which brings up the kind of like the main menu. But then you have the options button. You have another button up here. So plenty of options for developers to just add a lot of stuff in there. And 2 trackpads, which are pretty good. And this one in here has like a very nice haptic feedback when it's enabled in games. So as you're moving your finger, and you have a haptic feedback when you're hovering over objects that can be clicked, for example. So that's really cool. The rumble haptic feature that for the touchpad is great. The main rumble for like regular games is not great. It's not fantastic. It doesn't have like an HD rumble, kind of like the Nintendo Switch has. So it has like a basic rumble, I guess, service, if you will. But other than that, it's fairly good, and it does its part for the most part in games. Headphone jack, which is pretty cool. The volume control buttons are up here, and then you have your standby and power button up there. One thing that I was worried about was the placement of the B button here up in the upper corner here, upper I guess right corner of the system. And my mind was set at ease when a lot of reviewers and people from other publications played with the Steam Deck and mentioned that it was very easy to access. I kind of have to disagree. It took me a while to get used to it, especially when I was playing Bayonetta. I had issues kind of like hitting the button, like my muscle memory wasn't as good. So it's one of those things where you have to play a lot of, I guess, Steam Deck with its button configuration to get used to it. But it does have like a weird location that, again, it's not a game breaking situation, but it is kind of weird that it's so far up in that right corner in there. But right now I'm used to it. I'm using that button obviously to play different games and things like that. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what else. There's a 7-inch screen that I already kind of talked about. I'm not a fan of the glare, which is kind of like the downside of getting the mid-tier model and the lower tier model. The only one that has an anti-glare screen is the top tier model, which is the 512 gig model, which is obviously the most expensive one. The cool thing, or the saving grace, I guess, is that I could look into buying screen protectors that have anti-glare measurements, if you will. So I'm going to be looking into doing that. I'm not actually a huge fan of adding screen protectors on my devices, but this one may be warranted in order to avoid that glare. And as you guys can see here, I have some videos in the background that I'll be probably putting in this video where you will see the glare of me recording and playing the games, which is, again, a common thing for the 256 gig model. And it's kind of like a bummer, especially if you're going to be playing outside. I think if you're a gamer that will do your handheld gaming outdoors, I think it'll be better suited if you get the anti-glare model, which is the top one. Or again, if you want to go the cheap route, maybe get a screen protector that has anti-glare. I haven't really done my research yet, but that's my goal. That's my objective, to just buy a screen protector that can eliminate some of that glare when I'm playing games. As I mentioned, the 7-inch screen is fairly good. The resolution is 1200 by 800, which a lot of people were complaining. They feel like it's a fairly low resolution, but I think the PPI, the pixels per inch, is actually fairly good, considering the amount of real estate that the screen has and the amount of resolution. It's one of those things that people were complaining about the Nintendo Switch as well. If you're playing on handheld mode, I think this particular resolution that the Steam Deck has, and the Switch also, it's more than enough, in my opinion. I think since your eyes are far away from the screen and the screen is fairly small, the games look great. Now, in terms of docking the system, the Steam Dock is not out yet, so that's where I'm hoping that there will be an increase in resolution somehow. I don't think if that's doable, but if at that point it'll have to be, in my opinion, at the very least 1080 resolution or something like that, because otherwise it's going to look pretty rough on your big TV screen once you get that dock. And there's plenty of third-party docks out there. I haven't really explored those options because I'm fairly happy playing this on handheld mode only as of now. The resolution on handheld mode is more than enough. The game looks great. I guess that kind of takes me to the kind of like the software side of things, because I do want to talk about how there's a cool feature. You can have game profiles for each game in terms of You can limit the frame rate for certain games. So for example, if you're looking to have perhaps a better graphical setting for, let's just say, Resident Evil 2, for example, you can lower the frame rate to avoid the CPU being overworked in that regard, and then you get a lower frame rate, obviously. But there are other benefits, such as saving more battery and having a better graphic settings and whatnot. So you can do a combination of different things, activating different game profiles. The Steam Deck can go down, like the settings can go down up to 15 frames per second, which is, you might think, what game in the world would, play good with 15 frames per second, but it's great for visual novels. So if you're traveling and you want to extend that battery life of the Steam Deck, 15 FPS is actually, a very, very good option to make the battery last. And things like that. So very cool that the games have profiles, which is a cool option. Let me just check here my cheat sheet. There's about 2,000 verified games right now, and that list grows every day, every week. Valve is testing different games, and they're the cool thing is the Steam operating system. When you go to the store, games that have a green check means that they are deck verified, so that means those games will work on the Steam Deck without any issues. There are games that have a yellow exclamation mark. That means that the games play very, very well for the most part. They may require you to use the keyboard or the trackpad to select certain options, but other than that, those games run great. So in my opinion, if you see the green check or the yellow exclamation mark, you're pretty much good to go in terms of purchasing that particular game and playing it on your Steam Deck. That's great. There's, I believe, close to 2,000 verified games at this moment. Out of my library, I think 30% of my games have the green check, which is great. That's around 309 games on my library, so that's plenty to hold me over, to play games on the Steam Deck. And if I count the games with the yellow exclamation mark that are playable on the Steam Deck, that number grows to like over 500 games for my library. So that's over I think 50% of my games. So that's that's plenty. That will last me a lifetime if I really wanted to play all those 500 plus games, which is great. Another advantage, the Steam operating system is just very well laid out. So far, I've had no issues. There was one time where I had to hard power off the system, where it just got stuck. In the menus. Other than that, the Steam OS works pretty well. It's fairly responsive, and I think like with every update that Valve releases, it's just getting more and more responsive, which is pretty cool. In fact, they've been doing a lot of updates to the software, not as much as they used to. Like I feel like there were weekly updates, new versions of the Steam OS. They have slowed down recently, but they're doing a good job of fixing bugs and optimizing the performance of the menus and things like that. So that's always a welcome thing, obviously. The sleep mode may not work. That's something that I typically don't put games on sleep mode, but I found that the very few times that I did, games work normally, except Blasphemous. I think locked up one time. Again, I typically close out of my games when I'm done with my playing session. And it kind of it was kind of like a bad thing when it happened in Blasphemous, because I lost a fairly decent amount of progress. I had to like hard power off the Steam Deck. Lesson learned. I think I'm gonna try not to put games in sleep mode, and which is something, again, I don't typically do, neither with the Steam Deck nor my PlayStation 5 nor my Xbox Series S. I typically like to just close out of the games and reopen and load the games, which is the long route, but I feel like it's the safe route in terms of just avoiding glitches and hard crashes on my consoles and systems. So I did have that sleep mode, problem with Blasphemous one time. Let's see what else. The cool thing is, or actually my most requested feature, if I had to cite a very like my most wanted feature, would be to record gameplay clips, kind of like the Nintendo Switch does when you hold that capture button. You click it once, you take a screenshot. You hold it and then you can record clips that are 30 seconds. For me, you guys know me, I make a lot of impressions videos, and so and as of late, I'm doing a gameplay only impressions videos, and my voiceover in the background, reviewing the game. And so for me, that's a key feature that I really hope that they release it out. I think there are some third-party like apps that you can use on the Steam Deck to get around that, but I would like to have an official Valve, integration for recording game clips. And I can't believe that after all these months that the Steam Deck has been out, they haven't added that feature. In my opinion, it should be a fairly simple thing. You can use micro SD cards, so there shouldn't be any issues with memory problems. So please, Valve, if you're listening, can you please add recording game clips? And they don't have to be crazy, 30-second clip, maybe have like a limit to like a 1-minute clip. For me, I know it'll be helpful to record my impressions videos, and it was kind of a pain in the ass doing my review for Celeste because I play that game exclusively on the Steam Deck, and then I had to install it on my laptop here to record some gameplay footage for my impressions video, because when I do my video and gameplay, 99% of the time it's me playing the game. I just want a kind of like a journal of me playing the game and reviewing the game with me playing the game. I know probably nobody will notice if it's me or someone else, but it's just a personal thing, and that's hindering my I guess reviewing video process right now, because I'm almost done with Blasphemous and I don't have any, I guess, footage recorded. So that'll probably force me to download it on my laptop to record some footage to do my videos. Same thing with Horizon Chase Turbo. I may want to do an impressions video on that. So if they can add a game clip recording feature, that I'm almost set with the system in terms of things that I want, because everything else really works extremely well. I can't think of any other major requests that I have other than a request for third parties to maybe up their game and release like their own apps. I love for Stadia, for example, to work on a specific app to launch games. It's actually fairly easy to have Stadia launch, and that's another thing that I'll talk about a little bit later. But as of now, it'd be nice if GeForce or Nvidia can do a GeForce Now exclusive app for the Steam Deck, if Google can do a Stadia app, and so forth, for third-party applications. So that'd be great. And in terms of that takes me to the biggest, perhaps positive thing about the Steam Deck, is that it's quote unquote an open source hardware, in the sense that you can reboot the system, you can install Windows, which allows you to perhaps install things like GOG or Epic Games launchers. You can obviously download web browsers that you can use and set some I guess properties for the web browsers to launch, for example Stadia, for the web browser to launch GeForce Now. And you guys may think, why would you want to launch GeForce Now, which is basically a cloud streaming service that takes the games on your Steam library, or selected games from your Steam library, and streams it to your device. Well, not all the games, remember, not all games are deck verified. So there might be a really good selection of GeForce Now games, for example, that may not be deck verified or even playable on the Steam Deck. However, if you have GeForce Now running on the Steam Deck, you can play those games that are perhaps not verified on the Steam Deck, and it just broadens the ability and expands your library in terms of things that you can play. So that's why I'm hoping developers out there would release native apps for the Steam OS that would launch the GeForce Now and Stadia. I know that it's possible to play them via Chrome or downloading a Microsoft Edge browser, for example, but it'd be nice to have a more, I guess, easier option to just run those games. What else? And we're back. Sorry, the SD card got full on my camera and it stopped recording. But I just want to wrap it up. As I was mentioning, you know, one of the big advantages of the Steam Deck is that it's an open source system for emulation, for installing Windows, different launchers. Valve has been pretty open that, you know, they want to make this a very accessible system for gamers to just play whatever they want, and you know, that's a great thing. So this is truly the ultimate kind of like gaming device, in my opinion. Obviously, PC probably takes the cake, but if we're talking about handhelds, I mean, this just right off the bat, in my opinion, is my favorite handheld of all time, just because of the flexibility it allows, you know, you to play all those, you know, ROMs and emulations, and obviously the Steam store itself has thousands and thousands of games. So fantastic, I guess, situation here with the Steam Deck. And then let's see, just to wrap it up, another positive thing is the Steam store itself in terms of pricing. You know, you can always get very cheap games. The Steam Summer Sale just ended a few days ago, but you know, if you're looking for cheap digital titles, the Steam store has always, you know, sales in there. You can add games to your wish list and see if their prices drop. So fantastic source to get cheap games. And of course, the Steam store is a place where a lot of games come out on day one anyways, especially indie titles. So really, you know, the Steam Deck, in my opinion, is gonna eat the Nintendo Switch, you know, launch in that regard. Which the Nintendo Switch, you know, gained this reputation of being like the ultimate indie a game machine. But man, now with the Steam Deck out there, you know, it's to me, it's a no-brainer in terms of a third-party device. The Steam Deck, you know, just owns the Nintendo Switch, and this is coming from me. I'm a huge Nintendo fan, but man, you know, that Nintendo Switch of mine is gonna be basically a first-party Nintendo device for me at this point. Because I anticipate, you know, using the Steam Deck almost, you know, 100% for third-party games, you know, indie titles, third-party major games and things like that. No reason at all to play them on the Nintendo Switch anymore, you know, because of the performance. There's such a big gap in terms of powers and the power and performance. And not only that, but other things that I would talk in later videos, such as the, you know, the ecosystem. You know, you cannot compare the digital ecosystem of Nintendo versus Valve. There's like a huge difference between Steam and the Nintendo eShop that I may do a separate video ranting or discussing that topic. But yeah, and now that, you know, PlayStation and Xbox, you know, are releasing more and more of their first party games on the Steam store, you know, that's a fantastic news. That broadens the appeal of Steam as a platform. You know, it doesn't matter if we're talking about the Steam Deck or, you know, using your PC or laptop. The fact that, you know, they have opened their minds a little bit and releasing their first party or some of their first party titles on the Steam store is fantastic. You know, Uncharted will come out later in the year. You have Horizon Zero Dawn in there. You know, just crazy times that, you know, to have PlayStation and Xbox, you know, join the party with on the Steam store. But other than that, I'm extremely pleased with the Steam Deck. Highly recommended. I know it's on the expensive side of things, but it's a great hardware. I'm no regrets in getting the system. It's easy for me to say something like that because I have a pretty large Steam library. But I feel like even if you're a newcomer to the Steam ecosystem, I think you will find yourself very pleased because, again, you know, there are plenty of sales, plenty of ways to get games cheap. You know, third-party stores out there like Fanatical and Humble Bundled, where you can get, you know, bundle of games for like dirt cheap to expand your Steam library. So the Steam Deck is a winner in my opinion. definitely a system to keep an eye on. And in my opinion, Nintendo's in trouble. Their first party games will save Nintendo, but this is the way to go for third party games and other things like performance and power. So thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know what you think about the Steam Deck, and thank you for watching. Take it easy.